This episode has been sitting in the roster for a while, waiting for me to make space for it and make space within myself to make it, as it definitely hits home. There is a specific kind of pain that happens when you're going through any of the hardest things in your life: a breakup, a divorce, discovering infidelity, being in an accident, losing a loved one. And the person that you thought was holding you actually wasn't. They were sharing your story. Your most vulnerable moments became someone else's entertainment. Today we're talking about something I don't hear discussed nearly enough: why women gossip about each other, especially during crisis. We're going to talk about what it reveals, what it costs, and how we can do better, both as a person who's been betrayed and as someone who might have participated in this pattern without fully realizing the harm in the past. I'm pulling on some threads today that might be really uncomfortable, but they're necessary and they're important because we live in a world where we're very, very disconnected now. And now more than ever, we want to feel like the people that we are connected with are people we can trust. So let's go. Welcome to Pulling Threads, where we unravel the patterns that keep us stuck and explore what it means to live with authenticity, alignment, and peace. I'm Leslie, your host, a therapist, a former attorney, a coach, and the founder of the Loom Life and Loom Life Therapy. Today's episode is very personal for me. It's about a pattern I've witnessed in my own life and in the lives of nearly every woman I've ever worked with who's gone through some major relationship transition. It's about what happens when the friend or friends that you confided in become the person who gossips about you, and why this particular betrayal, especially during a relationship crisis, can be more damaging than the relationship ending itself. We're going to look at research, and I'll be honest, I wanted to dig in and do this episode and do the research for it for my own good, both so that I could improve as a friend, as a woman, and so I could understand why people did the things they've done in the past and why I've experienced what I've experienced. We're going to look at what gossip actually does to our nervous system and our ability to trust, and what we can do when we find ourselves on either side of this dynamic. But first, we need to define what we're actually talking about. And I think that this might be the most, or one of the most important parts of the episode, because there is a difference between gossip and other things. So let's get clear on what gossip actually is, because there is a big difference between healthy processing with others and harmful betrayal of someone close to you. Gossip is sharing someone else's personal or vulnerable information without their permission, particularly when that sharing serves your own needs rather than theirs. So let's break that down a little bit further. Let's talk about what gossip is not. Gossip is not getting support for yourself when you're struggling with a friend's situation. If your friend is going through something difficult and it's affecting you, you're allowed to process that with your therapist, your partner, or another trusted person. That's completely, totally healthy and recommended. Gossip is not seeking advice about how to help somebody. If you say to another friend, Jane is going through something really hard, it's a really hard breakup, and I'm not sure how to support her, what would you do? That's not gossip. That's collaborative care. If you know that Jane wouldn't want you to share that information, that's a little different. Gossip is also not sharing information that's already public or that the person has given you explicit permission to share. So let's talk about what gossip is. All right. Now, gossip is taking someone else's private, vulnerable story, let's say the affair they just discovered, the divorce they're navigating, details about the divorce, how they're feeling, what their worries are, the breakup they're devastated by, and sharing those details with others for entertainment, for social bonding, or to position yourself as in the know. It's saying, oh my God, did you hear what happened to Sarah? Let me tell you everything she told me. It's the discussing of someone's pain in a way that centers your experience of knowing about it rather than their experience of living through it. Here's the test. You can ask yourself, am I sharing this to help them or am I sharing this to help me? If you're sharing to process your own feelings, to feel connected to the person you're telling, to discharge your discomfort, or to feel important, that's gossip. And here's the other critical piece. If you wouldn't feel comfortable with the person finding out that you shared their story, you probably shouldn't be sharing it. Dr. Brene Brown puts it in this way in her work on trust. If you're not the person who's experiencing the struggle, or you're not the person who's been asked to help with the struggle, you shouldn't be talking about the struggle. That's the line. So when I talk about gossip in this episode, I'm talking about sharing of someone else's vulnerable information, particularly during a crisis like a breakup, infidelity, a divorce, without their permission and in a way that serves the gossiper more than the person being discussed. Now that we're clear on what we're talking about in this episode, I want to explore why it matters so much because it truly does. I want to start with something that I believe deeply. Women need other women. This isn't a romanticized idea. It's backed by decades of research. A landmark UCLA study on stress responses found that women have a unique stress response called tend and befriend. We respond to stress by seeking out social connection, particularly with other women. Men have the classic fight or flight response. Women, we also fight or flight, but we have this additional pathway. We tend and befriend. We reach out. We connect. We process through relationship. This is why when a woman is going through a relationship crisis, like a breakup, infidelity, separation, divorce, her first instinct is often to call another woman. Not because men can't be supportive, but because women are neurologically wired to process stress through female connection. It's been studied over and over again. Dr. Shelley Taylor, the psychologist who led this research, found that oxytocin, the bonding hormone, plays a critical role in this. When women are stressed, oxytocin is released, which prompts us to nurture and affiliate with others, especially other women. This literally calms our nervous system. And it's why we need each other. And it's why we need to be able to trust each other. So female friendship isn't just nice to have during a crisis. It's physiologically regulating, which is why the betrayal of that friendship, specifically through gossip, is so devastating. When the person whose role is to help regulate your nervous system instead activates it through betrayal, the harm is profound. You're not just losing a friend, you're losing access to a primary coping mechanism. And the loss in these situations often comes at a time when you need that mechanism more than ever. So let's talk about why this happens and use some research. Why do women gossip about each other, especially during vulnerable times? I want to be clear. Understanding why does not excuse it, but it does help us recognize the pattern and then hopefully we interrupt it. From an evolutionary perspective, gossip served a survival function. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar found that gossip, which he calls social grooming, helped early humans build alliances, share information about who's trustworthy, and navigate complex social hierarchies in their system. For women specifically, who often had less physical power, social intelligence and coalition building were critical survival skills. Sharing information about others created bonds and helped women protect themselves and their children. The problem is what once served as a protective function has become, and in a lot of cases, harmful. When you share someone else's vulnerable story, not to protect, not to problem solve, but to bond with a third party, you're using old wiring in a way that betrays trust for your friends and the people that might matter to you most. There's actually a dopamine hit from this. Neuroscience shows us something really, really important. Gossip activates the brain's reward system. When you share information that others don't have, your brain releases dopamine. Powerful drug. We all want dopamine. It makes you feel important, connected, valuable. A study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that people experience pleasure when they share social information, particularly information that makes them appear knowledgeable or well connected. So when your friend gossips about your relationship crisis, part of what's happening is they're getting a neurochemical reward. They feel closer to the person they're gossiping with. They feel like I have social currency. And you, the person whose story is being shared, are the cost of that transaction. Discomfort and emotional offloading are also issues. Here's another piece. Sometimes people gossip because they genuinely cannot hold the weight of what you're sharing. And I personally have experienced that. Your pain is activating something in them, maybe their own unexamined relationship struggles, maybe their fear about their own marriage, maybe shame about something that they haven't dealt with. Instead of saying, I care about you, but I'm not equipped to hold this, they stay in the conversation, they listen. In the case of divorce, sometimes, often, maybe daily, but they can't metabolize the discomfort. So then they offload it by talking about you to someone else. Dr. Brene Brown talks about this in her work on trust. She references the concept of hot gossip, gossip that comes from our own discomfort. We're so activated by what someone shares that we discharge it by sharing it with others. It's not malicious in intent, but it's still extremely harmful in impact. And that's why it's important to talk about it and to think about how we're sharing other people's vulnerable information. Then there's this really uncomfortable truth. Sometimes women gossip about each other out of competition. Research on relational aggression shows that women, more than men, tend to use social exclusion and reputation damage as forms of competition. Gossip can be a way to position yourself as better than or more stable than somebody who's struggling. If you're going through a messy breakup and your friend is in a marriage she's insecure about, gossiping about your situation might make her feel safer about her own. It creates distance. I'm not like her. My relationship is solid, even if we're struggling. This is painful to name, but it's real. And to be honest, it's happening all the time. It's still harmful. So let's talk about what gossip actually does to the person on the receiving end. I think it's safe to say anyone listening, especially females, like anyone listening, is going to be able to relate to being on the receiving end of gossip and being hurt by that. If not in your stage of adulthood you're in now, probably when you were young. It erodes trust in all relationships. When someone gossips about you during a vulnerable time, it doesn't just end the friendship, it changes your relationship to vulnerability itself. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that betrayal by a close friend, particularly when trust was very high, leads to what researchers call generalized distrust. You don't just stop trusting that person, you start questioning whether anybody is safe. For women who are going through relationship crisis, this is particularly damaging. You're already questioning your judgment. You may have missed signs of infidelity, or stayed too long in a harmful relationship, or stayed too long in an unhappy relationship. Now, in addition to the stress of going through a breakup, a separation, a divorce, and all of the stress and terrible things that happen in that process, now you're also questioning your ability to choose safe friends. And there's a lot of blame on yourself and questioning yourself and who you are. The betrayal compounds the original crisis and activates a trauma response. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, one of my favorites, trauma researcher and the author of Body Keeps Score, explains that betrayal trauma, especially by someone who you trusted deeply, can activate the same neural pathways as physical threat. Your nervous system registers it as danger. You may experience hypervigilance, constantly monitoring who might be talking about you, monitoring everything that you say and do and questioning it afterward. Withdrawal, pulling away from social connection completely, or even emotional numbing just because it's so painful. When you find out that someone who's your person, the person you tell everything to, has been sharing that everything with other people who barely know you, in some cases, there really are no words for all of the feelings, questioning, doubt, and distrust that you have, not just for that person, but for anybody. For women who are already navigating the stress of a breakup or divorce, this adds another layer of dysregulation. You're trying to heal, and instead you're in survival mode from your friend who put you there. This increases shame and isolation. Researcher Dr. Jennifer Freed coined the term betrayal trauma to describe what happens when someone we depend on for safety violates our trust. When a friend gossips about you, especially about something as tender as a relationship crisis, it often triggers really deep shame in you, even though you're not the one who's doing it. You start wondering, like, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I worth protecting? What's wrong with me that this person couldn't hold my story? In addition to all of the worries about how these people that you may or may not even know are judging you in this horrible time of your life. The shame is what drives isolation and makes you want to block out everyone. You stop reaching out, you stop sharing, you convince yourself it's safer to handle everything alone. And isolation, as we know from decades of research, is one of the most significant predictors of poor mental health outcomes during major life transition. It's actually going to delay your healing. Here's what many, many, many women don't realize. The betrayal by a friend during a relationship crisis can actually take longer to heal from than the relationship itself. And I can attest to that with my own personal relationship and my own personal experience. Why? Because the relationship that ended, you saw that coming. Even if you didn't want to admit it, you had some preparation, however inadequate it was. But the friend betrayal completely blindsides you. You trusted this person. You didn't see it coming. You trusted them or you wouldn't have shared. And now you have to grieve not one, but two losses, the relationship and the friendship. Research on complicated grief shows that betrayal significantly extends the grieving process. You're not just grieving what you lost, you're grieving the fact that someone you trusted hurt you and made it worse in your worst, most vulnerable time of your life. Because let's face it, breakups and divorce bring out this tremendous pain that's just indescribable. And other than the death of loved ones, there's not a lot worse. If you listen to this and you recognize yourself, if you've been betrayed by a friend during a breakup, separation, or divorce, here's what I want you to know. Your reaction and everything you're feeling is valid. You're not being dramatic. You're not overreacting. This is real betrayal, and it deserves to be named and grieved. It says more about them than you. The gossip happened because of something lacking in them: emotional capacity, self-awareness, the ability to sit with discomfort, even if it's not their own. It doesn't mean you were wrong to trust them. It means they just weren't equipped to be trustworthy in that moment. And obviously, you did not know that. You get to protect yourself. You don't owe anyone continued access to your story. If someone has shown you that they can't hold your vulnerability with care, it's okay to pull back. It's okay to end the friendship. It's okay to grieve and move on. It's also okay to tell them what they've done and tell them that they are no longer a safe person for you. Not all friends are unsafe either, but you have to learn discernment. This experience of going through this might teach you something really valuable, what safe actually looks like. Safe people don't share your story without permission. Safe people say, I'm not equipped for this, if they can't hold it. Safe people check in before repeating anything you shared. You're not becoming cynical, you're becoming wiser. And this is an opportunity to learn from an uncomfortable and terrible situation. But rebuilding trust is going to take time, and that's okay too. Be patient with yourself. It's okay if you're more guarded now. It's okay if you're slower to open up. You're recalibrating. And that recalibration is protection. It's not pathology, and it's not forever. I do encourage people who've gone through this to work with a therapist or a coach. If betrayal's layering on top of your relationship crisis in ways that feel overwhelming, professional support can really help you process both the losses and rebuild your capacity for trust. In my situation, having access to my therapist and EMDR helped me not only process the grief from losing the friendship and the trust issues that came from the betrayal, but additionally, it helped me identify traits and things that I had been calling into my life and characteristics of people who were untrustworthy that I was allowing in and why I was doing that. Kind of this self-sabotage type reasons that I was allowing relationships and friendships that didn't have the boundaries in place that would protect me from something like this happening. So we can always learn, we can always get curious, and we can always process with a professional to figure out why and how to avoid it in the future. Now I want to talk about if you've been the one who gossiped, all right? Because let's face it, we've all done this. That's part of the reason we're making this episode is we've all done this. If you are listening to this and you recognize yourself on the other side, if you've gossiped about a friend going through a hard time, this is your invitation to pause and reflect and ask yourself, what was I getting from sharing their story? Was I trying to feel closer to the person I was gossiping with? Was I discharging my own discomfort about what they were going through? Was I afraid of being vulnerable myself, so I shared their vulnerability instead? There's no shame in recognizing these patterns, but there is responsibility in changing it. If you realize you've betrayed someone's trust, or you do this often, consider apologizing genuinely without defensiveness, repairing where possible, examining what internal work that you need to do so this doesn't happen again. And moving forward, practice this. When someone shares something vulnerable, ask yourself, is this mine to share? If the answer is no, then hold it. Or tell them honestly, I care about you, but I don't think I can hold this right now. Honesty, even if it's uncomfortable, is kinder than betrayal. I, in the past, was in a situation where a friend was sharing really terrible things that were happening to her during her divorce. And this was way before my divorce and way before I was in my own therapy. And I did share some of her information with another friend who didn't know her. And now I can recognize that I did that because I did not have the capacity. It was very upsetting what she was going through. It was egregious, like terrible things were happening to her. I felt so bad for her, but I also just didn't have the ability to hold it in and have the space. So there was a point in time when I took distance and I stopped being the sounding board. I stopped having contact so that I didn't have to take it all in because I recognized I couldn't hold it. And I think that that is a life skill. I think there's a reason why teenagers and people in their 20s probably gossip more. As we get older, we can learn to hold more space for people and hold people's truths and vulnerabilities more. But we can also learn to set boundaries and speak up when we don't have the ability. Some of the things that were shared during the time of my divorce were shared in a way that put me and my kids' future and financial stability at risk. And I don't think that the person who did it for that reason, but that happened. And that was part of the most hurtful part, like that it was putting me and my kids' future at risk at a time when I needed so much to feel safe and secure, especially financially. So I guess this message is for this episode is not only for the people who've been through this and who've had it happen to them and just saying, I see you and I understand. But it's also for the people that I know it's hard to hold space when someone is going through these really big life transitions, getting fired, getting divorced, losing a loved one. Like they need so much, right? And there's so much sharing. It's okay to say, I can't hold space. There are ways to do that. There are ways to do that kindly. It is not kind to take the juicy details and the pain of what someone is going through and telling people who are essentially strangers to that person to just share. Like, that's not okay, ever. So here's what I want to leave you with. Women need each other. It's not sentimental, it's biological. It's backed by research. I need other women. It has taken a long time and a lot of work for me to trust other women again. But our nervous systems regulate through connection with other women. That connection has to be safe. Gossip, especially during crisis, fractures safety. It makes us less likely to reach out to others, less likely to be vulnerable, less likely to trust. And when we lose our ability to trust each other, we lose access to one of the most powerful resources for healing each other. And oftentimes we're exposing our daughters and our sons to it. And they're learning to do the same thing to their friends. So let's do better. Let's name it. And if we do it, let's apologize for it. Or let's recognize when we do it and stop. Let's name gossip for what it is. It's not harmless venting. It's betrayal. Let's build friendships where vulnerability is sacred, where stories are held with care, where trust is earned, protected, and kept sacred. Because the women going through breakups, infidelity, divorce, and separation that I work with, they deserve friends who can hold them, who can witness their pain without turning it into entertainment. And I promise you that if you're sharing someone else's pain with friends, you're also losing those friends' trust because people recognize it when you do this. So if you're sharing Jane's pain with Amy and Mary are not going to trust you. They're going to look at you and say, ooh, I saw what she just did. So who can say, I see you, I'm here, your story is safe with me? That's the kind of friendship that actually heals. That's the kind of friendship we want to provide to the women that we care about, who love us and support us back. So I hope this helps someone out there avoid being in this same situation. I know that this is geared toward a population near and dear to my heart, women going through these really terrible things, but it applies to others as well. People who lose a child, lose a husband, lose parents, get fired, go through anything controversial. Like, if they confide in you, put it in a lockbox and hold it safe and sacred. Till next time, thank you.